Hey guys, this is Dr. Earl Turner. I am stopping by today to speak with you briefly about burnout. So, this is something that for many of us, we have probably experienced it at some point in our life. I know that for myself, being a very busy professional, it can be difficult sometimes to manage all of my responsibilities, take time for family and friends, and also to be able to relax and feel productive. And so, I think that for many of us, we have the potential to burn out at some point. And so I wanted to stop by just to talk briefly about burnout, what that is, and also what are some strategies that may be helpful for you to prevent or reduce the likelihood that you may actually experience burnout. So when we look at the definition of what is burnout, burnout is defined as a state of exhaustion that includes physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. And we talk a lot about trying to reduce or prevent burnout, primarily because we know that obviously it's going to impact your body. And so you may feel physically tired, but it can also impact your work productivity, your relationships with your family and friends. And so I think it's important that we make an active decision to really come up with a plan in terms of how to reduce the likelihood that we may experience burnout. So if you've been following my podcast, The Breakdown with Dr. Earl, you know that we've talked about a number of different issues around self care, mindfulness, all of those strategies that may be helpful. And so I wanted to just sort of come back a little bit and touch on some things that are particularly important when it comes to burnout. So the first thing that I want to talk about when it comes to burnout is in your job or in your responsibilities related to professional organizations, for example, if there is an opportunity to delegate responsibilities, that is one way to help prevent burnout because it allows you to be able to, one, identify what your strengths and weaknesses are. And maybe there's someone else that may be better equipped to handle a particular task. But it also prevents you from taking on too much responsibilities. And obviously, for some people, there are not opportunities to delegate. But I think that if you have the ability to delegate some responsibilities, that is one way that is helpful to reduce the likelihood of burnout. The second strategy that I want to talk about when it comes to preventing burnout is manage your time effectively. I think that oftentimes when we are in multiple roles, we go from one task to the other, and that is not as helpful to making sure that you prevent burnout and exhaustion. It obviously may help you be very productive, but you're going to become exhausted and drained because you're not allowing yourself time to effectively manage those tasks. And so I think when it comes to managing your time, you want to, if you have to get a schedule for some people, using a calendar to sort of dictate, how many times they're going to spend, how much time they're going to spend on a particular task, that may be helpful. But also, it's important to integrate breaks into your schedule when it comes to time management because that allows you an opportunity to be able to sort of free up your time, give you a breather in the middle of the things that you may be responsible for. The third thing that I want to talk about is learn how to manage your stress. And so for many people, they become very overwhelmed by life. And so you don't really know what to do. And you just sort of get so exhausted and drained that you don't do anything, which of course impacts your productivity when it comes to your work responsibilities. But it also may impact your relationships with your family, your children as well. And so I think when it comes to trying to figure out how to effectively manage your time, one thing that we've talked about on the podcast recently was about engaging in self care. And so I think that's one way to make sure that you are actively um, integrating parts of your life that requires you opportunities to restore yourself. And so you want to be able to do that. But also being able to I think unplug from technology is another way to manage your stress. And so, for many people, particularly when it comes to your day to day responsibilities of a job, oftentimes your email may be open on your computer. And so, every message that pops up, you are inclined to either look at it or respond to it. And so, I think one way that may be helpful for some people is that if you, going back to sort of time management, set up in your schedule that you're going to check email from this particular time period in the day. And so that way you can close off that feature on your computer, so that way you're not inclined to respond to emails every time something sort of pops up if you get an alert. And also being able to think about your cell phone. I know that for many of us, we oftentimes keep our cell phones right next to us. And so making sure that you put it away in a drawer, put it away in a backpack or a briefcase for several times throughout the day. So that allows you an opportunity to be able to really focus on the task. And then you can be able to sort of check in at a later point in the day, instead of sort of being overwhelmed by doing your job responsibilities, checking emails, checking your cell phone. All of those things can really be overwhelming for you. And then the next strategy that I want to talk about is making sure that you have a self care routine. So, on episode 2 of season 3, we talked about self care with Dr. Robin Goldman. And I think one of the things that we discussed was that it's important to have a self care routine that includes something that you are practicing every single day of the week. And that is not something that you just set aside to do at the end of the week or the end of the month, or every 3 to 6 months, in terms of like taking a vacation, which is great, and it could be a really useful self-care activity. But you want to make sure that you're doing something on a day-to-day basis to prevent burnout when it comes to practicing healthy self-care. And so that may include things like yoga for people that may use that as a strategy. For spiritual people, including activities that may be helpful from that perspective. Exercise may be important for others as an important aspect of their self-care routine. And then sleep. I think for many of us, we don't really think of sleep as being a self-care practice, but sleep is important, and that is helpful for your body to make sure that you have the appropriate energy to get through each day. And so as you begin to take on multiple tasks, and you don't get enough sleep, that's going to put you at a much higher risk of burnout. So again, when it comes to burnout, burnout is a state of emotional, physical exhaustion, and it's important for you to engage in healthy practices on a day-to-day basis to reduce the likelihood that you're actually going to experience burnout. And some of the tips that I just discussed might include delegating responsibilities if you're in roles that allow you to do so, managing your time effectively, learning how to manage your stress, and also practicing healthy self care.